Hi folks, in this video I'm going to show you about the box model. And the box model is a set of behaviors or properties that exist in HTML tags or block level tags, including that they have padding properties, border properties, and margin properties. And you can adjust these properties to make block level elements behave and render differently on the screen. Now, I should say that the box model only applies, at least in a predictable fashion, to block level elements. It does not apply to inline elements. So just so you know, block level elements always stack like this. Notice that these two divs stack on top of each other, as well as this HR. Whereas inline elements like this span and this anchor tag, they don't stack. They exist on the same line. So the box model does not apply to these types of tags, although you can make them apply by changing them from inline elements to block level elements, like so. So for example, the span and the anchor, we could change them with the display property, and then we can just change them to block, like so. And notice now that they all stack. Or we could still make them inline and just say that they should take inline block, like that. And now they will accept borders and margins and padding and behave just like block level elements. But just for the purposes of this video, let's just stick with regular default block level elements. And let's first apply some border styles so border properties to this div. And here I've applied a border style of solid, a color of red, border color red, and a border width of 1px. You can also do dashed or dotted, but almost always I just work with solid. And you can change these colors, black, and change the width here. This will change the width on all sides the same amount. Maybe make this 20px, 20px. Or you can also apply these border widths individually. So instead of applying this property like this, you could apply them individually, like so with these properties. And notice that you should always, by convention, and also actually when we start using shorthand, you should start from the top, go to the right, bottom, left. So top we have 10px, on the right 1px, bottom we have 10px again, and on the left we have 20px. If you like, you can also use a shorthand for this, like this. So here I'm doing the same thing I did above, but I've just done it on one line. You start at the top, right, bottom, left. But this is the same code as that above. Or you can even use a shorter method that combines all of these, or if you have the same border all the way around, then you can apply it like so. Let me show you. Let me comment out all my properties. And we can just do it in one line. Border. Let's make it just 1px all around. Make it solid and make it red. And now it's rendering. And you'll find in many circumstances that this is adequate. And let me just take out all this code for the time being. Just use the shorthand style. Now, just as we've applied different widths to our margin, we can use a very similar syntax for our border. We can use a very similar syntax for margins. So let me paste some margins in here. And here, just to make this more apparent, let me add an HR tag here. So here we've applied a margin, a top margin of 20, a margin on the right of 30, bottom of 10, and 15 on the right-hand side. Let's increase this to maybe 30 just so you can see what's going on for 40px. And that's not working right because this should be left down here. And now you can see that it's moved across, okay? By the way, if you open your developer tools and click this little icon here and move it up around and just going to roll it over your element, you can see it's highlighting all those different widths for you. Let's now apply, and you can also see them down here, by the way. And you can even fiddle with them inside your developer tools. I have double-clicked on the top margin, and now I'm just using the arrow key, and I'm increasing the top width. Or I could go down here and do it to increase it this way. This, of course, is not automatically updating my CSS, but you can play around with them in your developer tools. Let's just reset that. Typically, you don't use this longhand method for applying margins. Oftentimes, you'll just go margin and then 20px, 30px, 10px for the bottom, and 40px for the side, for the left side. And this is effectively the same thing as what we have above. Let me get rid of that. So now we have shorthand for our margin. And now we can do the same thing with our padding as well. So if the margin is adjusting the space outside the border, between the border and the next element, or the surrounding elements, the padding adjusts the space between the content and the border. So let's just add some padding properties into our rule set here. And here we've applied, again, using top right, bottom left, sequencing 10px on the top, 1px on the side, which we're not seeing that, although because the because by default the box extends the full viewport width. But then 1px on the bottom and then 30px on the left. We can look at this padding again, or see it with a little bit finer detail if we just, again, use our developer tools. And you can see again that 30px on the left is very obvious, as well as the 10px on the top. Now again, for when typically you don't usually set these individually. I mean, there may be occasions when you need to do that, but usually we just set it with, again, a shorthand property. So padding, and we can go 10px, 1px, 1px, 30px. This shorthand is effectively the same as what we have above here, so let's get rid of that now. And now we have a much more sort of succinct way of describing the particular box we're working with here. By the way, you can even make this shorthand smaller or shorter or more succinct if you have the same values on the top and on the sides. So for example, if we do 30px like that, this means that you have 10px on the top and the bottom and 30px on the left and the right. This applies for margins as well. So right here, we're effectively saying 20px margin on top and 30px is on the side. Let's look at that again in Developer Tools and see. You can see it there, what is going on. Or if you don't I think this is the best way to see it, perhaps, but you can also, of course, you can also examine it down here in the developer tools if you can see them all showing up here, the computed measurements. And here I've refreshed the screen because the developer tools doesn't always compute correctly until you actually refresh it. But here, notice that we have 20 and 20 on the bottom, 20 on the top and the bottom for the margin, right? 20 px, and then 30 on the left and the right, which pertains to this. Same with padding, 10 px on the top, 10, 10, 30 on the sides, 30, 30, 30. So oftentimes, in addition to border, margin, and padding, when you're leveraging the box model, you'll also be just adjusting or specifying the height and width of the actual div. So let's just paste in a width of 100 px and a height of 100 px. And notice that this is not actually conforming to or intuitively to the width and height we've set, because obviously this should be not a square, not a rectangle. But that's because our padding is skewing the box. If we get rid of the padding here, let's just comment it out, we can see now that we do get a width and height of 100, a square effectively. So again, to summarize very quickly, the box model is a shorthand way of saying that there's a whole bunch of CSS properties that you can apply to block level elements, including you can change their borders, their margins, which is the area outside the border, their padding, which is the area between the border and the content inside the div, and then you can adjust their width and height as well.